actually recently that I found out that you'd done your PGCE whilst being in an international school. And so it's great fun to have you here to talk a little bit more about it.
Well, I mean, as when we start talking about it, you'll see that it wasn't quite as straightforward as me doing my PGC being in an international school. I was actually doing it at 2 different schools, and it was kind of all over the place, but it'll make for interesting analysis, I think.
Well, we'll soon find out. So before we go any further, what I'd like you to do is, I always get people to introduce themselves because I think it's much nicer rather than me doing it for them. So, Vicky, what I want to know from you is just a little bit about, or the audience would like to know who you are and your current role in education.
Okay, so my name is Vicky. I was born and raised in São Paulo, Brazil. I've studied in an international school my whole life, as did my mom, who was also a teacher at the school that I work in now as well in Portugal. So she teaches year 6 and I teach year 2 currently in the same school. And that's the thing, like I did the teacher training and I worked as an assistant, but since my mom was always a teacher, while I was growing up, that kind of teachery, the vocabulary and the, approaches and stories and stuff were always at home. So, it wasn't totally unfamiliar, to go into it. But yeah, it was good. So now I'm happy this is my 3rd year teaching year 2 at the school. And before that, I was teaching, I was a co-teacher in one of the other international schools here in Portugal with toddlers, with 3-year-olds. I had 25 3-year-olds, which was fun. And then before that, I was doing my PGC and I was like shadowing other teachers, and I was teaching English at Portuguese preschools and doing learning supports at the international school. And then before that, I had been a kindergarten assistant for 2 years in Brazil. So it's kind of been a bit all over the place. This is my first time, it's the longest time I've been in the same job, really, starting now my 3rd year. So let's see how it goes.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose, and I think you probably touched on this already, because it sounds like all your experience in a way has sort of led you up to wanting to teach or train. But was there anything in particular where you thought, this is the career for me, this is what I want to do?
When I thought for sure this is what I wanted to do was, I really liked being an assistant in the kindergarten in the international school in São Paulo. Because I was listening to you before, and that what you said, that you dread doing displays in the classroom and you get more, going ahead with the planning and academic bits. I am sort of the exact opposite, where displays are my favorite thing to do. And I get a bit like this week that we had now, the in-service week, I got a bit carried away, just, what displays can we do and how can we do them? And I spent so much time doing this one detail for our door that I could have done 1,000 other, planning things and paperwork things. So yeah, and I did that a lot as an assistant, and I played a lot with the kids, and I had another relationship to them. And that just really, I was like, yeah, I like this. And, I like young kids. And I think definitely I've always aimed to, primary or preschool, but I can't say I had the same feelings for secondary school.
No, I mean, hopefully, if our other
not yet anyway.
Well, if our other guest Danielle does manage to call in, I believe she is secondary trained in maths. So again, her view on PGCE and teacher training is different to yours and mine as well, because she went through that whole secondary process.
Also different because she likes teaching math.
Well, yeah, I mean, I quite enjoy teaching maths, to be honest, but that was because I hated it in school, but I had a brilliant tutor at university who completely revolutionized it for me. And bizarrely, it's now my favorite thing to teach. So we're opposites there as well.
Yeah, it's true. But then I like doing a lot of crafty things and a lot of artsy. I think I'm just more inclined to the more creative, bits of anytime we can make a poster of something or make a craft that expresses something that we've learned. I get more excited about that. but I'm, always willing to improve. And I feel like I'm constantly in training. After PGC, it's just kind of I've learned so much more from experience of being in the classroom, kind of dropped in the deep end a bit. And like annoying other teachers for advice, and sort of having that collaboration has really taught me much more than the stuff that I learned on the online PGC, for sure. Just being there,
Oh, wonderful. We've just managed to get Danielle in as well.
Oh.
So we've now got the two of you in here together. So we will sort of try and kind of get you both involved in the chat together, because I think it's going to be very interesting to compare different things. But first of all, good evening, Danielle. How are you?
Good evening. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Really, really well. I'm glad you've managed to join. So thank you for being a part of this, because what Danielle is probably too polite to tell all of you is that I accosted her on Twitter and asked her very kindly to do this, and she didn't turn me down. So it was a good result.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, well, thank you for joining. I suppose what I want to hear from you as well is what, and I've just asked Vicky this as well, but what was it that led you, or no, well, first of all, before we do that, just a quick introduction to who you are and where you are in education currently, because I realised that didn't get a chance to introduce you there.
Okay, so my name is Danielle Denton. I have just finished my teacher training in mathematics, and I will be teaching maths and economics now from tomorrow, really. I did a degree in economics, so the maths teaching was just a kind of a foot in the door. But I had my eyes on economics from beforehand, so it's nice that now I get the chance to do both.
Wonderful.
So before teacher training, I was a teaching assistant only for about 4 months before we had lockdown. So I feel quite new still to working in education, because before that I was at university.
And what was it in particular that made you want to teacher train as well?
Well, I first wanted to teach before I started university. I was in college, and I think I had just realised that the world of banking and whatnot was not for me. And I was like, okay, I need to find a new career. And at the time, I just felt like I really enjoyed helping my friends with their studies. Like, I had a few friends that were retaking first year. So I would like revise with them, go over the stuff that I did the previous year. And I was like, I really enjoy this. And friends used to say that I was really good at it. And I was like, maybe I should do teaching. And I really, really like economics so much. I love it so much. So I thought, okay, that makes sense. So that was the plan. I wanted to teach economics. And then everyone was advising me, don't teach economics, train to do maths. It makes more sense. So eventually that's what I decided to do instead.
Ah, okay, interesting. Now, what I want to know from both of you, and you can take it in turns to answer this, because we know that there are many different routes into teaching. I mean, I know people who've done BEd, who have done PGCE, who have done things like Teach First, and it's just there is a whole variety of ways that you can now get into teaching. And certainly with the review that was discussed previously in the show, where it's all going to change and everything's going to be, I think, probably quite tightly, even more tightly regulated than it already is. I'm sort of interested to know from the two of you why you chose the route that you chose, or why you chose the entry that you chose, and why that won out for you. So, Vicky, what was it for you that made you choose IPGCE?
So I had just moved to Portugal in 2016 is when I moved here. And I had thought about what my original plan was to come with my family here, but then maybe spend a year in the UK. I thought I could do it there, living there and working at a school there while I was training. But then obviously I didn't know the details of how it worked. And then when I approached different universities to go through that path, and most of them were like, no, it's not for international students. We need, British students or European students. And I'm Brazilian, as the only passport I have. So I was like, oh, okay, I have to see another route. And then I heard about the IPGC and a couple universities that offered it. And one of them was the University of Nottingham, where I went for uni anyway. Well, I went to Nottingham Trent. But then, you had to do it. The main requirement was that you had to already be working in a school or school environment, classroom environment. And I went to the UK for about a week during the summer. And then, just all the induction and all that, get to know all the modules and the coordinators and stuff. And then, and I had a job at my current school as learning support. And then I thought, okay, so if I can shadow in with some teachers in their actual classrooms, though it was only secondary school at the time, it didn't have the primary it has now, I was at least in a classroom environment and I could do that. And then I got another job teaching English to Portuguese preschools and year one as well. So I was in a classroom environment, but this is what I mean by kind of all over the place, that it wasn't just one mentor, one environment, so it had to be one that was super flexible and that I was able to do while I had 2 part-time jobs. So I was still able to find time to do it, which was good, but it was a bit hectic in a way.
Gosh, blimey.
I think I also wish it might have been a bit more traditional. I don't know, but yeah, it was a bit crazy.
Oh gosh, interesting. And Danielle, what about you? What route did you choose?
So I did schools direct. So when I was teaching assistant, and I was thinking about which route to take, and people were actually advising me to do a PGCE. But at that time, I had just got my first job after university. I was just not really feeling heavy studies. So I was like, I want it to be as much like a job as possible. So I said, I'm definitely not going to do the PGCE route. I'm going schools direct. And yeah, not much to say really. That was my rationale.
Okay, and with schools direct, you were linked to a university, and because I'm not too familiar with it. So what was the approach through schools direct?
So it's an academy trust, and then the training was linked with a university.
Oh, okay, I'm with you. And I suppose, what I want to know from both of you is, we're here to talk about, the teacher training is hard, whichever route you take, wherever you are, it is a brutal time. It's fantastic in many ways, but it also is incredibly, it's incredibly tough. And I suppose I want to know from you, so you chose your route, you've decided, right, okay, this is the career for me. What was it on those courses that really sort of stuck out to you as kind of, this is great, this is sort of what I need, I'm really enjoying this particular aspect, whether it was what you were doing from the university side or what you were doing in the classroom? What were the bits that stuck out for you as kind of, okay, this is my right path? And I suppose, Vicky, I'll come to you first on that one.
Okay, I'm just trying to think what was my sort of the thing that stood out for me the most in that process that helped me. I think honestly, because I was, because I wasn't that overwhelmed with classroom work and stuff as I see teachers now who are doing their PGC, or if I was teaching in my classroom now and doing it, it would be super overwhelming to have a massive amount of teacher work plus PGC work, right? So what I quite enjoyed about having the part-time jobs that I had and doing the PGC was that it gave me the opportunity to sit down and research, which I don't do as often as I should now as a teacher anyway, which is super helpful. But, research the different, theoretical aspects of like why teaching this way is important. What is the impact of this method of teaching? And what are some, do you know what I mean? Like, and just kind of seeing if I could implement those things little by little. And then I would have to write essays on it. So I was really thinking about it. But then again, it is also kind of the downside to it a bit also was that it was very sort of theoretical, and it didn't, like I'm just sort of comparing with my friends who are doing another PGC now, where they have to be observed and they have to be given feedback on their lessons and directed feedback. And I didn't have that. So I was just kind of writing my essays and doing my lessons the way I was doing them. But I would have appreciated more feedback. But I did like the time that I had to research and write it out. And then also it was interesting to be in touch with other international teachers that were in the same position as I was. Like when we went for the induction week in the UK, I was assuming there would be, everyone would be inexperienced teachers who were just starting, but there were some teachers who had been teaching for 10 years and just didn't have the PGC, and all the different countries and different age ranges. And it just made me feel better that we're all in the same boat. And even though it's all different journeys,
Okay.
But
I mean, it's interesting, and I'm sure Danielle's listening, because she's mentioned to me that the university side of it she found a little bit sort of less helpful and wasn't her thing. And I know she'll interject in a minute when she's ready to. But did you find that, because obviously you're connected to, from what you said, you were connected to a British university, but you're in Portugal, you're teacher training.
Yeah.
Yes, you've got that support in school, which you've said was great, and it was great to be connected to that and to have that community. But do you feel you perhaps missed out on the university aspect at all? Because although you've got that link, you're not in a lecture hall, you're doing these essays very much by yourself, by the sounds of it.
That's the thing. I don't know. I mean, like, yes and no, because I'm very sort of ADD, and like things are all over the place and I need to sit down and focus. And I think if I'm in a classroom, in a lecture hall with someone talking to, maybe that's better than me having to create my own, find the time to do. I was often doing essays at, midnight, sort of going back to high school when I would work at midnight, and I don't know, so
the flexibility
flexibility was good, but I probably didn't use it as well as I should have. But I miss sort of because the support was just kind of online, on the Facebook group. What'd you guys think of this? How's it going for you? But it's just different, because you're not in there with them, you're not seeing them every day. And I think I would have preferred that. Where now in my school now, I have 3 friends who are going to start their PGC in the coming months, and I think that'll be great for them, and they'll have that same journey together and be supported and stuff. Where I was kind of with a community, but isolated, but alone,
Oh,
and also, oh, sorry.
No, go on.
Oh, no, and also, like, for example, I was teaching English in the Portuguese schools, and they didn't have any resources to give me, so I was having to make all these resources, but not sure if it, and I didn't have a mentor either, like a formally appointed mentor. I didn't have that. So it's just kind of, as I say, a bit dropped in the deep end with all these like writing essays and learning about theories and stuff. But I've learned so much more just being in the classroom after. And I think my first year was stressful, and hopefully I'm continuing the pattern of every year being better than the previous one.
Well, that is a very positive approach. And actually, I think that's a perfect time to bring Danielle back in. And Danielle, I know that you mentioned to me before we did this show that the university side of it for you, although you were, affiliated to a university, you had that connection. You mentioned to me that it wasn't your favorite part. It wasn't the bit that you felt was the most conducive to your training.
Oh, absolutely not. I really struggled to approach it the same way that I approached, planning my lessons and the actual teaching side of things. I really did struggle with that. I had to keep reminding myself that, I'm still a trainee. I still need to, learn about the theory. And the theory was actually quite interesting. And especially, I think the last essay we wrote was about policy. And I actually enjoyed that, writing that essay. And I thought, wow, this is the first time I've actually enjoyed one of the essays we've written. But I just think the training comes with a lot of struggles. And then I also felt like maybe I had some not only unique to me, but some struggles that maybe a lot of other people didn't have. Like I mentioned to you how I studied economics and was training to do maths. That was another strain on me, which was very it was a very big strain on me. You know, worrying about, it was more the worry about my subject knowledge rather than me just not being able to do it. But I just didn't feel as confident as I would have liked. And that carried me, that was with me throughout the whole year. And then, you know, in the beginning, struggling with behavior, and there was just a lot. And I just felt like I'm not interested in these essays at the moment. That's how I felt.
I mean, it's I do definitely empathize with what you're saying, because I came to teacher training a bit later. I was 26 when I trained, and so I'd done my degree, I'd done my master's degree. I knew how to write an essay, and I very much thought when I teacher trained that a lot of it, I mean, I knew kind of how the placements worked and things like that. But I was actually shocked by the amount of written work there was, because the kind of the stroppy part of me thought, well, I've done this in my undergrad degree. You know, I don't, me getting a good grade in this essay doesn't prove to you that I can stand in a classroom and deliver a lesson to 30 children.
Yeah, I was exactly.
A bit belligerent about it in a way, which probably was, but that again is part of these courses that we do. And I wonder, maybe, I mean, this is something I'm going to sort of ask you about after we've played the news, and to have a think about kind of what you think maybe there needs to be more and less of in these teacher training courses that we're doing, because although your experiences differ wildly, I mean, Vicky seemed to get quite a kick out of doing her essays, whereas Danielle absolutely did not. So it's just interesting to know what both of you think about, you know, where these courses maybe have room for improvement. So I'm going to just put you both on mute, play the news, and then we'll come back and continue our chat.
Teachers Talk Radio, and this is Teachers Talk Radio News.
This is your latest Teachers Talk Radio News with Gail Glenn. In Scotland, First Minister Nicola Sturgeon handed millions of pounds to local authorities to buy CO2 monitors and improve ventilation in schools. But the Sunday Post newspaper has received information that some councils appear to have ignored the advice despite a growing number of outbreaks. North Lanarkshire Council said there are no plans to install monitors in any of its 162 schools, and they will rely on natural ventilation. Scientists from CERN, the world's largest particle physics lab, released a study last week which said that they found that a combination of natural ventilation, masks, and air purifiers were highly effective in the presence of a super spreader. These measures should be combined with additional safeguards such as physical distancing, hygiene, testing, contact tracing, and vaccination. EIS leader Larry Flanagan said, "We have been pushing councils to get CO2 monitors and improve ventilation in schools since Christmas, but it is still a postcode lottery. Some councils have ignored the new guidance. They're relying on keeping windows open, which you might get away with in the summer, but not in the winter." COSLA, the Association of Scottish Councils, said the Scottish Government provided £10 million of additional funding for local authorities to ensure that education and all daycare of children's services have access to CO2 monitoring, whether via mobile or fixed devices. In England, data for last year released by the Department for Education shows a wide variation in school admission appeal rates between local authorities. The lowest success rate was shown to have been in Doncaster, where appeals from parents had a win rate of only 6%, far lower than the national average of 19%. The founder of the law firm schoolappeals.com, Matt Richard, said that the urban landscape of an area could be a factor in the variation in success rates. He said that appeals in rural areas could be down to logistical reasons, with schools being more than 5 miles apart. But in urban areas, cases were more likely to be down to parents simply wanting their child to be placed in a better school. He added, it can also be down to the training and advice given to independent panel members, which they stick to for their decisions. This has been your daily education news briefing.
And you are still with me, Lucy Newberger, on the Tuesday Twilight Show. I am here with my guests, Vicky and Danielle, and we are discussing, well, all aspects of teacher training, the good, the bad, and the kind of, and we're moving on to sort of what we'd like to see more or less of, or where we think teacher training courses are going to head in the future. And I think this is the part of the discussion that I'm really excited about, particularly with everything I discussed in the preamble to our chats with Vicky and Danielle. So let's see what their take on this is now that they've had a moment to think about it. So Vicky, coming back to you first, what is it that you maybe would have liked more of, and what do you feel was not particularly, what you probably could have done without in terms of your IPGCE experience?
God, I was having a hard time trying to think about it, really, because I think I've just forgotten a bit about the nitty gritty of how I was feeling while I was doing it at the time, because I was quite busy, But I don't know. I think definitely I would have enjoyed a greater connection with the supervisor from the university of the course. I just remember not really talking to them as much as I as probably would have been more beneficial too. And I think just sort of comparing to other PGCs, I would have liked to have had a more formal involvement of a mentor in the school where I was, because it was I don't think it was even required by the course. It was just like I approached the teacher and asked if it would be okay if I shadowed her classroom, and if I could if she could help me out a bit. But then I know there's so many different types of PGCs, right? So that was just my particular one that didn't necessarily demand that. But I think, greater connection with the supervisor, more sort of great. I would like to have planned more realistic, I did a lot of essays and stuff, which I know I quite enjoy, but a few times while I was researching and reading the article, all the things we had to read and writing the essays, I was thinking to myself a bit like, well, have these people been in a real classroom before? Because it's all like, ideally, this and this would happen. Well, yeah, of course, but if it was something more realistic, like if I could share more lesson plans and have more pointed feedback at that. I don't know. I just feel like maybe mine was a bit too general, and I would have liked mine to have been a little bit more specific and more.
Specific.
I'm missing the word.
No, I don't think you are. Do you mean specific sort of in the way in terms of maybe specializing in a subject, or do you mean...
Oh, yes. Sorry, that was another thing that I remember thinking at the time. You're right. Thank you. That in my particular course, I didn't really have... Yeah, it wasn't particularly aimed to primary or to secondary or by subject. I wish I could have narrowed it down a bit more to that. The only way I narrowed it down was in my final module. That was a research module, and you had to have lesson plans, and you had to it was sort of like a case study of your particular thing. Mine was the impact of like play-based learning on second language learners. So that's what I did with the kids in the Portuguese school when I was teaching them English. But I would have liked